You're on the road beyond. Welcome to all of you joining us on Facebook and YouTube. Thank you for being here. Of course, we are here every Tuesday, new episodes this week, and we're going to go ahead and get started. My co-host, Ike McFadden, he always, he had to leave the country. He's in Greece right now, and you're kind of living there, Ike. Are you ever coming back to the States?
It depends on whether you guys get your act back together or not. I'm trying to it's like a bad relationship. I want to give some distance, see if we still want to date at the end of this.
We'll see how it goes. You've been a busy guy over the last couple of weeks, doing a little bit of traveling. And I know I think last week it's like, where's Ike this week? Where did you go?
This past week, I was in Turkey. I was in a place called Antalya, which used to be called Anatolia. It was all part of the Roman Empire. Turkey and Greece were all part of the Roman Empire. And it's actually the southernmost location of Hadrian's Wall. There's another Hadrian's Wall in England that separates England and Scotland. I did have a chance to go to a place called Kuikoi, which is an old abandoned ghost village. There was apparently a very large earthquake in the early 1900s, and for whatever reason, they never resettled it. So it's now become this place where it's a very quaint little village that's overgrown with vines, and people hear strange things there at night, and there are strange sights of lights in the sky, and it's become sort of a ghost hunter mecca for that part of the world.
And of course, you did your research over there. You took some pictures and audio, which you're going to share with us today.
What?
Yeah, no? Okay, good. Hey, you know, one thing I found weird about over in Greece when I was there, it was over 20 years ago. But on the islands, they have earthquakes, I guess, fairly regularly. And there was a massive earthquake maybe 50, 60 years ago. And instead of leveling the town, what they simply did was just start building over the ruins of the town. So they take you out on boats so you can see in the cliffs where they actually started building on top of each other. Is that just kind of the norm over there?
Yes, it is all over Greece, but it is a very active tectonic area. And it's an interesting thing. I'm in Athens at the moment, and pretty much anytime you do any construction in Athens, you dig half a centimeter, you find bones and pottery and sculpture. Right. And the Archaeological Commission has to come in and make sure it's okay. It's nothing that, yes. But basically, they just build on top of building, on top of stuff. And
that way, they don't have to bring in the archaeologist and stop progression, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a good idea. Hey, it's too bad you didn't take any pictures, Ike, because we're going to talk about things that people see in pictures that may explain paranormal sightings. We're talking about a term called Pareidolia. Are you familiar with the term, Ike?
I am familiar with it in the sense that you mentioned it to me about 60 seconds ago.
Okay, great. Well, I'll give you the actual definition here. It's the tendency for perception to impose a meaningful interpretation on a nebulous stimulus, usually visual, so that one sees an object, pattern, or meaning where there is none. Now, for example, common examples are perceived images of animals, faces, or objects in cloud formations. Also, people may see things in inanimate objects like lunar moon pareidolia, where people see the man in the moon. Or remember that Mars face? We're going to talk about that in the show as well. So the concept of pareidolia may also extend, you'll like this, Ike, into recorded music being played in reverse where you actually hear something. You remember that whole deal with, I think it was Led Zeppelin back in the 70s, where you could spin the album backwards and it would recite, satanic hymns?
Yeah, I had all those records. I loved them.
Yeah. Well, somebody had to do that first, and they started that as well. That can be also considered pareidolia. So that's what we're going to be talking about on the show today, Ike, and we have an artist who kind of features this stuff.
Yeah, that's right. We've got Keith Larsen with us. He's an American self-taught artist, author, and he's a designer. His illustrations are published in collegiate art books all over the world, and his unique approach is taught also in schools all across the place.
Now, Keith uses pareidolia, a psychological phenomenon that causes people foreseeing meaningful images and ambiguous patterns to create quirky characters and empathy to write poems and stories to make these inanimate objects come alive. Keith, I want to welcome you to the show. Thanks for being here tonight.
Hey, how's it going?
Good to have you with us. It's going great. Now, I want to talk with you about pareidolia, but first, let's talk about art. Is this something you've always been in? And I want to get to your Instagram account too, because that's got some fascinating stuff as well. Tell us how long you've been working as a professional artist.
Professional artist, I would say probably the last 3 years. So this whole project started in 2017. But doing it professionally has been like the last 2 or 3 years.
And what started you in art altogether? Had you been doing that since you were a kid?
Oh, definitely, yeah. So I originally started just doodling during school. Like when my teachers would talk, I would just sit there and make lines. And then I would just start doodling faces out of them and just see like whatever I see. And it would help me concentrate, actually.
Well, so we heard Todd talk about pareidolia and his definition of it. Can you tell us basically your definition and what got you attracted to it in the first place and maybe how you use it in your art?
Yeah, so I never knew the term until I started posting my art online. And then like I posted something like with all these characters, I posted like 7 characters on Reddit and it got some publicity and people were like, yeah, it's called pareidolia. Like it's like a common thing. I was like, oh, I have no idea. I have like all these pictures of faces I would find and I would just doodle them. And then that put me down the rabbit hole. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. Like I've been doing this my whole life. I mean, we all do it. It just depends on how in tune you are with it, you know?
Now, folks can find your Instagram account. It's called The Faces Within the Places, and look for it on Instagram. It's got some fascinating takes on art. Let's talk about the account itself, because we're showing a few of your pictures while we're doing this podcast as well. But maybe you can tell us about some of the inspirations. I've seen a few of them where you've had like hooks that you've drawn faces around. And also there's a very famous face of a butt of an animal as well. So maybe we can talk about a few of those.
Yeah. So, So I guess my biggest inspiration for the thing as a whole, I would say I used to love Dr. Seuss, the way he would like create this world and then just like all these rhyming patterns and everything. So originally like just drawing the pictures, it's just like whatever, but then bringing a story behind it gives it more of a character and like a relative feel so people could like laugh at it. But yeah, and then just basically taking it from there. And then I do animations with them. I basically do anything that comes to my mind, like whenever I see a face.
So is there actually, do you consider there to be something actually spiritual and paranormal related to this? Or is it simply an art technique? Or how would you, for people who aren't familiar with it, where would you put this on the spectrum?
You see, I don't know how, I don't want to come off as like, woo-woo is not the right word, but whenever I see a face, automatically what comes to my head is what they would sound like. And then I kind of get an idea of what their day goes like and like what they would say and like talk like. And I wouldn't say that's, I don't know if it's like comes to me that way or I'm thinking of it, but it just happens so quickly. So I don't know if that is a spirit coming to me or it's just me, the way my mind works, but it definitely feels natural for that to happen to me. I just might be on that sort of receptor level of pareidolia.
Well, just so you know, the bar for coming off as weirdly woo on this show is really high.
Yeah, I guess I don't know. Like, yeah.
No,
we've had people on the show who we've had people on the show who actually think there's a whole world inside the earth. Okay, and so
I've heard of that.
We cover all aspects on the show. So yeah, the bar's pretty high on that. Let me ask you this though. Have you learned a lot more about pareidolia since you've started doing the art, maybe looking at it a different way now that the term's been brought up? It sounds like to you, your process is fascinating because you hear the voices of the objects, you set up their whole surroundings and background, and then you bring them into animation. Now, though, that you know the definition of this, does that mean more to you now?
Yeah, it definitely does. I would say like I did look up like why we do this sort of phenomenon, and it actually goes way back like during the caveman days, where they're trying to survive and spot like a saber-toothed tiger in the bushes, like see if they could spot the eyes and the nose, and like, so that's our brain constantly doing that. And now we're just able to spot it and spot goofy characters. And I mean, that's the way I do it. And so that's.
Do you think, is this just pattern recognition that all humans have?
Yeah. I mean, yes, that's what they said. So basically these studies are saying like we all do it, but I guess to me, once I started learning the term and just knowing how it works in my head, it's just constantly like, now I'm just constantly looking for it. It's kind of like that marketing technique where it's like, oh, you didn't know you'll see a helicopter until you started advertising it or whatever. Basically that. So now I just see like faces everywhere, and I'm just making a whole collection of them.
Let me ask you this. If you're looking at an ad for a company, do you see things in that ad that we might not be able to see, maybe looking for hidden meanings? Because they've always, over the years, you've always seen things like, oh, well, Coca-Cola has this hidden symbol in the background, or on the dollar bill, it's a tribute to Freemasonry. Do you see things that normally we wouldn't see in marketing ads?
I would say there is one technique I do know of that's subliminal, which is like for like watch companies. Mm-hmm. Whenever on watches, they always have it at like this sort of configuration. So it looks like a smile to automatically make you happy. But I mean, when it comes to ads, I guess there are some things I don't really pay attention to ads too much though. Right. Like try and point it out, but yeah.
Well, so Todd, you mentioned the whole face in Mars and seeing things in the moon.
I wanted to get
Is that technically called pareidolia, or is that, or are you applying that?
No, it actually is in the definition. If you look it up, pareidolia can be, when you think about paranormal sightings, we see faces on the moon, we see shadow people, things. Keith, I want to get your opinion on this, because I'm sure you've seen that famous face on Mars that's been, tossed around since I think it was first taken since 1976 by the Viking Voyager. But what's your reaction to that when people see a face on Mars? Then the next thing you know, they're seeing canals and pyramids. Is this pareidolia, in your opinion?
Is this the face on Jupiter?
On Mars, there's an actual face. Yeah, I
didn't see the Mars one. I saw the Jupiter one, and I know of the moon. I never seen the Mars one.
Well, they all kind of fall in the same realm.
Yeah, but I would say up there. I would say certainly like it's us trying to, I guess, look for meaning. It's like, oh look, there is life up there, and it's smiling back at me. Right.
Have you thought of turning anything that you've seen in outer space into art?
I did with Jupiter. There was a Jupiter picture that NASA took, and they actually named it and like claimed it a face and everything. They called it like something McJupiter face. I did like a whole poem on that too. It's somewhere in my Instagram, like way down there. Yeah, NASA claimed like it was a face.
I was going to ask, what is, I'm reading here about shadow people. Is that something you came up with, Todd, or was that?
Yeah, that was another one I wanted to toss out there. So maybe, Keith, I'm sure you've heard the whole legend of shadow people, things that people see in the dark, images of actual people. You can't make out faces, but you could make out the shape. In your mind, is this something that can be explained by pareidolia?
You see this? I mean, I have experience with this too, like just like growing up. I saw it as sleep paralysis, and like, because I've actually had that, like people actually like while I'm sleeping come up to me in my room and it's just a shadow figure, and it's like not even there. So that, I mean, I wouldn't say so much pareidolia, but probably so much as, because they're not there, you know, it's not like we're trying to make something out of nothing. Like it's actually like in your head. It's not an image we're trying to perceive. So, I mean, I'm not an expert on sleep paralysis. I've only came across it because I've experienced these things too.
Well, tell us about your experience with that. When did it happen? How old were you? What do you remember of that?
Yeah, I mean, ever since I was younger, like not so much often now, but whenever I would sleep, I would imagine things in my room, like running around my bed or in the hallway, going back and forth. Like actually, it's kind of like a horror story. I was laying there, I was like 14 years old, and I had my door a little bit open, and I saw this little girl with an axe going back and forth.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, and then I'm just laying there, unable to move, knowing like I'm trying to sleep. I don't know if I'm sleeping. And then all of a sudden she comes into my room and she's standing in front of me and just pulls up the axe. And as she's coming down, I wake up in the same exact position I'm in. She's not there, except I had a killer headache. And from there, that's where I looked up, okay, what is this stuff happening to me? And it's not like it was like, oh, like a bunch of my clothes were left like on my chair, you know, and I made it out to be like a girl. It was just like in the back of my mind, I guess. I don't know. But or ghosts. I guess that's where you guys could come in. But yeah, I mean, I looked up and sleep paralysis says like stuff like that happens.
Well, so, Keith, you remember when I said we had a high bar of sounding crazy?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no, you sound crazy. It's
But I got to say, ever since then, like, I mean, it's only happened a little bit, but nothing as bad as that as of recent.
So I actually have something of an art background. Were you trained in this, or was this something you came to later in life, or what do you actually?
I've always done it. Like I said, in school, it just kept me occupied, and I never went to school for art. I went to school for math, science, all these things that I've dropped out of, even audio. But all these times, like that's like my thing. Like I would just doodle, and like, it's like sort of meditation for me. And once I found this funny thing to do, which is just like draw the faces that I see. It mainly happened because my one college roommate couldn't see this face that I was trying to show him. And like, I drew it for him. I started making the voice that like I heard in my head. And the way he reacted, I was like, oh, this is something. And then I took like a bunch of my pictures and I just drew them. And then, I just developed like a style for this type of series, like the art style. And I just put it online, and then it kind of, it took off. Like it's doing its thing now.
And let me ask you this. Do you think having that experience you had when you were 14 years old and being able to hear your art subjects talk to you before you can animate them, do you think that any way that you may be an empath to another world?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something to consider, but I've always been intrigued with it, like mediums and like all these things, but it's something that I guess that I have with my identity growing up. Like my family was always religious, so I always blocked it out as like, oh, that's demons, that's bad. Right. So I never kind of did the line with the two. And then of course, like now that I'm older and just like, I'm just like, oh, this is like a real thing with people have. And it's like real energies, but I never actually tried to fully tap into it besides just this art stuff and making stories about them and just having fun.
Do you think the religious upbringing, like one of the things I do when I travel a lot is I go look at cathedrals, for example, and it's very interesting seeing the different art styles and say a Muslim cathedral, it's not called a cathedral, or a Greek Orthodox cathedral. One is two-dimensional, another one's three-dimensional. Was that something that was interesting to you growing up, like seeing the kind of art associated with the church?
Oh, yeah. Like, especially too, how a lot of it has to do with the stars and like just outer space. And yeah, just like the kind of parallels between them all. And it's super interesting to me. Yeah.
We've been talking with Keith Larsen. He is an artist. His art has been deemed pareidolia. And you can also look up that definition again. We're not going to go over it again with the show. But if you want to find him, look for him on Instagram. Keith, tell us where they can find you on Instagram and on the web.
Yeah. Basically any sort of social media account at the Faces Within Places on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, website, thefaceswithinplaces.com. And which actually, like, I'm releasing a book with all of these characters and stories. It's 252 pages, and it's just a collection of like either best of, or a bunch of fans send me like pictures of faces that they find, and I include them in the book. So like I illustrate them, and then I gave them photo credit, and yeah. It's a fun project that's just ongoing.
Before you go, Keith, real quickly, I want to find out about the animal butt that's posted. What was the story behind that? What did you hear as a story for that backup?
That was actually sent to me. So that's a picture of a butt of a dog, and it's Jesus Christ just basically hovering there. And it's like, oh, okay.
All right. Yeah.
Good boys.
I guess we see anything and anything. Keith, thanks for being here. We're going to put in our social media post, we'll put your handle for Instagram on there. Thanks for being here and joining us tonight.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
All right. Thank you, Keith.
All right. I'll see you guys.
All right. So, Ike, what do you think? Could pareidolia be an explanation for what people see in paranormal sightings?
Well, I mean, I think his point about humans and mammals, one of the reasons we have a stereoscopic vision is about pattern recognition and seeing something that's hidden, as he said, like an animal that's camouflaged or within tall grass. That's actually an evolutionary trait that humans have. So I certainly think there's a biological background to why this thing might be in our brain.
What about the faces on Mars? What is your take on that? I mean, it's been brought up in the news for decades. Some people are claiming they see pyramids in some areas, and then also canals and possibly lots of structures on the ground. What's your take on that?
It was all very interesting when it came out, which was, I think, a good 20 years ago. The last stuff I saw about that was that they had other overflies of the same area several other times, and that when you see it from different angles with different lighting, it's clearly just a dog with a Jesus on his butt.
It's clearly just a dog with Jesus on his butt. Okay, all right. Okay, Ike, it's now time to take a look at some of the weird, tantalizing, and just plain bizarre stories posted on our partners at the Full Spectrum Project on Facebook. Did you get a story for this week?
I saw something I was going to mention to you, which was, and I don't know if you caught this. You remember we've been talking about the Jetpack Man for a while?
Yeah.
Well, did you see this story that came out where I think it was whoever the FAA is in California was saying that they had reason to believe it was actually a balloon shaped like a man. Did you see that?
I saw that. I did. But quite honestly, if I'm a pilot and I see that, I'm not going to make a mistake that it's a dude on a jetpack, because I did see that picture, and it's one of those balloon figures. You can buy a balloon figure where the head is the actual balloon that floats and the body's kind of like, strung along on paper along that way. So it makes a figure. I ain't buying that. I mean, you've had 3 credible reports from pilots in jet airliners who are in Los Angeles area seeing, you're going to tell me this sounds like Area 51, the Roswell incident where it was swamp gas and balloons. No, I don't buy it.
Well, let's bear in mind that, pilots have also been known to fly directly into mountains.
Not the ones who saw the Jetpack Man. Come on, give them a break.
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. No, I did see that, folks. And if you look for it on the web, you'll find a picture of an obvious balloon floating around LA with a paper body hanging from it. It looks nothing like a dude on a jetpack. All right. 2 different.
And yet neither does a mountainside looked like a landing strip.
All righty then. Hey, I've got something I found kind of interesting. It was posted on the Full Spectrum Project. I don't know if you had a chance to look at the bar graph that I sent you, but we'll get a chance to show it to our viewers. Chapman University out of Orange, California, they're known for doing all types of studies and surveys across the nation. Well, back in 2018, they did a fear campaign, paranormal fear across the U.S. And what are people the most afraid of in this country when it comes to paranormal things? What are their beliefs, Ike? You want to take a guess at number one?
Flying into mountains?
Flying into mountains, yeah, and seeing guys in jetpacks. No, places can be haunted by spirits. 58% of Americans polled back in 2018 thought that was true. Running a close second, my friend, keep the face on Mars in mind, ancient advanced civilizations such as Atlantis once existed. That runs 57% of Americans think that.
Well, and you could halfway understand that because we do live in a world like Athens, Greece, where you do see remnants of prior civilizations.
Absolutely.
So you could understand where that comes from.
Well, I think the argument here is not that there weren't. I think a lot of people say, yeah, we had other civilizations. The argument here is a lot of scientists go back and archaeologists and they say, well, man started appearing 7,000 years ago, but they're finding the modern man. They're finding information now that almost on a daily basis that proves that civilizations existed hundreds of thousands of years ago. We don't know what's under Antarctica because it's covered in ice, but they're thinking if that does melt or if we get a chance to explore it, then you're going to find a lot of things. And that archaeology is a lot older than what is being touted now by academia.
Well, wouldn't it be interesting if, say, the polar ice caps did melt, and we know this for a fact that there is land under the North Pole, and
right.
there are probably mountains under there, and there probably, I'm thinking it's possible that there are airplanes that have crashed into those mountains tens of thousands of years ago.
Absolutely. In the prior civilizations, yeah. But those guys probably didn't see guys in jetpacks like they're doing now. Okay, on with the paranormal beliefs. Here's another one. 41% of Americans believe aliens have visited the Earth in the ancient past.
Yeah, I know people do believe that.
Okay, 35% say aliens have come to Earth in modern times, Roswell.
And that's one of your beliefs, isn't it? Is that correct or no? I
do. Well, I think there's some truth in it. Yes. Okay. 26% of Americans fear or say some people can move objects with their minds. Are you buying that?
I have trouble getting people to move a box with their body.
Okay.
All right. It's just you have a higher opinion of humans, I think, than I. It's like I'm happy if Amazon shows up within the month, and no, I'd love to believe that there's someone out there doing this, but I just don't see that level of competency in most humans.
Well, I don't know. Yeah, you don't think there's a Yoda out there who can lift, a TIE fighter or an X-wing fighter from a swamp, right? Just
no,
by
I believe me. I've seen pictures of him.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Here we go. You're going to love this one. 21% think Bigfoot is a real creature.
And it's funny that of that list, that's actually the one that I think probably has slightly more scientific basis to it.
And finally, the thing that may be surprising, 17% think fortune tellers and psychics can foresee the future.
I've got an idea for a business. Let's talk after the show.
Okay. If it involves crypto, as in currency, we're all in on that. Okay.
Crypto and psychics and mediums and NFTs. We can put this all together. We're going to be billionaires.
There you go. We're going to figure it all out. Ike, we're going to wrap up this episode. Before we go, I know we've got a lot of folks. We've got a whole social media team that's actually posting on our Twitter account. You know that, right?
Yes, and people can find us on Twitter on The Road Beyond Podcast, and on YouTube also, I believe, at The Road Beyond Podcast, and on Instagram under your Instagram handle, I believe.
At Todd Duplantis 65. Yep.
And
on Facebook.
Nathan, I don't know if you saw this. Nathan, our director, he had an idea: cryptid currency.
Cryptid currency. That could be our next podcast. All right. Tune in next time. We'll give you our forecast for what you should invest in crypto. And we'll also talk about crypto, not the currency as well. All right. Ike, we'll see you next time. And we'll see all of you next time right here on The Road Beyond.